Welcome into this Big Ten today on a Wednesday, the first day of October. We are presented by Gatorade. Great to have you with us. I am Dave Revson as we plunge headlong into conference play in the Big Ten. And who better to do that with than my friend Jerry DiNardo. Exciting time of year, Coach.
Great to be with you, Rev. I love Wednesdays. I wish there was more than one Wednesday a week. You know, it's so much fun to be with you.
If anyone can get that done, I would have to guess that's you. And of course, while our focus is on football, I think at the outset of this month, it's a good time to show people just how good things have been in the Big Ten writ large. That is our big story. 4 number one teams, actually 5 number one teams in the Big Ten, 4 outside of football. Ohio State defending national champs in that top spot again, as they have been most of the season. But then, speaking of reigning champs, you got 3 others from last year, once again occupying the top spot in the polls. Northwestern atop the field hockey world. Wisconsin women's hockey off to another great start. UCLA water polo is 15-0. How about Nebraska volleyball? Still haven't lost under Danny Busboom Kelly. As for the Buckeyes, Ryan Day, pleased with where things stand 4 games in.
They're executing on the field well. They're building confidence. You know, I say all that, and you guys know what I'm going to say. Like, we're not anywhere near where we need to be. We have to continue to get better. We got a lot of work to do, but to play the way that we played up to this point shows maturity, and that was a big emphasis point for us this summer with a team that hadn't had a lot of experience. Guys need to step into roles and play experienced.
Jerry, this is a different team than they had a season ago offensively. Defensively, it feels largely the same. Obviously, different personnel. Matt Patricia running the defense. We're going to talk to Caden Curry coming up here later in the show. He's been a breakout star. But how would you assess where the Buckeyes are 4 games in?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ryan Day hit it on the head, right? And I think, as we talked last week, the schedule has a lot to do with it. I mean, coming off the Washington win was a perfect way to get ready for the rest of the season. You know, just because a team is ranked number 1 doesn't really mean that they're the best team or best team in our conference. But Ohio State looks that way. They look like they're improving every weekend. Julian's saying they've got to figure out what he can do as a quarterback. And it's clear that there's no hangover about they won the championship last year and they just think they can come and show up and win another one. They are a motivated team. So making sure they're putting the quarterback, Julian, in the position he needs to be. But there's also a lot of progress, Trevor, with the coaching staff. I mean, you mentioned Matt Patricia. Now, he's come from the NFL. Now he's had 4 or 5 games with a college team, learning the college game. And if there was ever a time when the offenses in the NFL and the offenses in the college game were similar, this is the time they've been most similar in the history of the sport, based on the style of quarterbacks that are playing the game. Obviously, the NFL gets their quarterbacks from college, so you're always going to base your offense around what your quarterback can do. Then you look at Brian Hartline, first-time play caller, Ryan Day on the headsets, obviously. I have to believe that they have made progress in the way that Brian calls the game, the way Ryan interacts with it. So if there's a team in this conference that's making steady progress as a team and as a coaching staff, I don't know any team that's doing it better than Ohio State. And we know they have talent, and now they have talent and reps. That's a recipe for a pretty good team.
It was interesting to hear Ryan Day talk about the offense and talk in particular about what he's asking Julian Sayin to do. He was discussing this both in his news conference this week and also after the game against Washington. I think there are some questions from people. I mean, if you take out the FCS game, Jerry, if you just include FBS games, they're 10th in the Big Ten in total offense. So it's bottom half of the league. I mean, just barely. They haven't been overwhelming people. But I think Ryan has, he certainly intimated or said after that Washington game that having a defense that's as good as their defense is allows him, and by extension allows Brian, to approach the game a little bit differently. Give people a sense, as someone who's been a head coach, been an offensive coordinator, of how you marry those two together.
Well, it's all about game management, right? I noticed that Julian's saying they're moving him more. They're not. He's not as much of a pocket passer, perhaps, as some of the quarterbacks that have been at Ohio State are. You just manage the game, to answer your question, Reverend. Though you don't put the offense in a position where if your defense is struggling, that a turnover would really make it worse for your defense. And Ryan Day's been a play caller for a long time, but now he's been a head coach for a long time. And if there's anyone that can manage a game, I think the best game managers are the ones that come from the offensive side, right? Because they're used to controlling the game as offensive coordinators. So Ryan Day has been calling plays for a long, long time. So when it comes down to interacting with Brian Hartline and interacting with Matt Patricia, he tells Matt, okay, we're going to slow it down a little bit on offense, or we won't put you in a bad position. And he has a sense of how to manage that game more than, say, a defensive coach that becomes a head coach. So I think Brian has this thing totally wired. Again, when you have really talented players and really talented coaches, and you go about your business the way they've done it, improving each week, that's a pretty good recipe.
No doubt. It's been an incredible recipe under Ryan Day. I mean, you think about the game this week against Minnesota. I mean, they just don't lose games like this. They're 50-1 against unranked teams under Day. Let's talk about the Gophers. They came off a big win over Rutgers. They came from behind to pull out the win. We were talking about all last week, kind of the familiarity bowl. You had all the overlap between the staffs. You had Ethan Kaliak-Manis against his former team. So there are all kinds of storylines there. So now with PJ Fleck, I mean, this is a really different animal going up against Ohio State here this week. How do you manage this situation if you're PJ?
Yeah, the energy drain is what you really worry about, because obviously it was a great battle, X and O wise and physically on the field. But all the emotion, PJ and Coach Schiano and Kaliak-Manis, all those subtitles, those stories, they wear on you emotionally. But having said that, I think PJ would consider himself, and I think we consider him, a master motivator. And so, he's going to find a way to get the most out of the players. And he's been a head coach for a long, long time. And here's when you really make good decisions during the game week in preparation. I mean, what's Tuesday's practice look like? Tuesday's the first hard day of practice, right? You play a game on Saturday, different coaches give Sunday or Monday off, and then Tuesday you're back to work. I mean, do you back off on Tuesday? Do you press on? What do you do on Wednesday? And so I think you have to manage your emotions if you're PJ, which I believe he will do as good as anybody, knowing that they've got to go to Ohio State and play a team that's playing lights out now and ranked #1 in the country. I think Drake Lindsay is part of that equation. He's making really good progress. I mean, if you look what he gave to Minnesota last week and what Aiden Kaliak-Manis gave to Rutgers, you might give it to Drake. And so you don't want to give Drake issues at Ohio Stadium that stop his progress. So as you put together the game plan, I think you want to say, coming out of this game, we want Drake Lindsay to have as much confidence, whether we win or lose, the way he went into the game. So they've got to do that. If you're Minnesota, protect your quarterback's confidence.
It's particularly impressive the way they have done that when you consider all the injuries in the run game. Darius Taylor banged up. I mean, against FBS teams, they're averaging just over 3 yards per carry. So he hasn't been able to rely on the run game as Gopher quarterbacks typically have. A lot of it's been on Lindsey's arm. And as you said, he certainly delivered in that game against the Scarlet Knights, was Big Ten Freshman of the Week. So that is the lone primetime game in the Big Ten this week, that Ohio State-Minnesota game. We've got a doubleheader of action here on the Big Ten Network in those two early windows, kicking off with Illinois against Purdue. Then we've got Washington colliding with Maryland and Northwestern hosting Louisiana Monroe. Coverage begins with countdown to kickoff, 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Let's focus in on that early game, Jerry, Illinois against Purdue. I have to say, I think the job that Brett Bielema did last week, and you can't just give credit to him, but again, he's the head coach, so it starts with him, getting his team ready to go, putting everything that happened against Indiana behind them. we've seen him up close and personal for a long time, obviously going back to his time at Wisconsin as well. We understand how well he is able to connect with his team, his ability to kind of push the right button at the right time. But what did that performance last week tell you about Brett and tell you about this team?
Well, it didn't tell me much about Brett because I wasn't really surprised.
You already knew it, yeah.
He has a way of doing that, right? He's a great game manager. He's gotten so many teams ready for so many different situations. I will say this though, my guess is he's a little disappointed in the roller coaster kind of season that they're having, right? The Duke game at the time, was a great win in my opinion. Okay, I'm not saying Duke's a great team, but that was really the first test for this veteran team that was being talked about being in the college football playoffs. Then we still can't explain Indiana, right? I mean that's hard to explain in any terms. And then the USC game, the way he came back. So for a coach that coaches consistency, for a coach that's teams are always the sign of consistency, this has to be a little different for Brett. And I think that's what the Purdue game is going to be. He always talks about opportunity, right? I mean, he talked about an opportunity about SC. Everyone said, what happened in Indiana? What are you going to do with SC? And he just kept saying, hey, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. I think the same thing is true about Purdue. They're favored in the Purdue game. And it's just another opportunity. But it's an opportunity for them to get back consistent football, to put two good games in a row together, which they really haven't done except for non-conference. So I see this Purdue game being a challenge for Illinois to look more typical of the steady Illinois team than maybe the up and down Illinois team.
And they're in the midst of their most difficult stretch of the season. I remember they played 2 ranked games in a row here, as you say, with very different results over the last 2 weeks. And they got Purdue, and then they have Ohio State looming next week, which is an enormous game. I mean, I don't want to say you have to beat Ohio State to make the playoff, but they might. I mean, I don't know. Two losses, but one of them being by 53. I mean, again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But it's a huge game, no doubt, for them to show that we can compete, we can go toe-to-toe with elite teams. It would be dangerous to overlook Purdue, though, Jerry. I mean, we talk about how good Illinois was last year. Remember, Purdue took them to the brink last season. Ryan Brown had a breakout performance, and that was not a good Purdue team, to say the least. This is a much better team. What has stood out to you as you've watched Barry Odom's version, his first version of the Boilermakers?
Yeah, but before we go to that, Rever, I mean, if Illinois shows up flat, shame on them. I mean, there's a lot at risk. And if they're off to a great start, then Brett's going to start thinking about next week and may make some substitutions. Here's what impresses me about Barry Odom. Whether it's coaches tape that I watch or whether it's broadcasts that I watch, they just look like a really well-coached team. They look like they're ready to play. There's not a lot of unforced errors. There's not a lot of penalties. They look like a disciplined team. And if you look at their scores, when a team is still being developed, in other words, they haven't recruited to where they want to be yet. And I think it's fair to say, even with the portal, Barry Odom expects his teams in the future to be more talented. But when you look at the first half of games of a coach's first year, Ball State, now, this was their first game. Obviously, Purdue should have better talent than Ball State. But at halftime, it's 21-0. So Purdue gets off to a fast start. So they couldn't have made a bunch of mistakes the first half. Southern Illinois, another team that obviously Purdue would have better players, 24 points in the first half. So it looks like they're not making a lot of mistakes. The Notre Dame game, they scored 23 points the first half with all the weather distractions and everything else. So to answer your question, what it looks like a really well-coached team. And Josh Henson, the offensive coordinator, I think has done a really good job calling that offense. And it's a creative offense. They're running a lot of the same plays that most of the successful teams around the country are running. So I just think that Barry Odom is off to an incredible fast start. But watch him on TV, watch coaches tape, and you come away saying that's a well-coached team. Maybe they don't have the talent, obviously, of Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, and so on and so forth. But but they're going to only get better because he seems like he's a heck of a coach, and he's done it. He did it at Missouri and got fired, but they were well coached at Missouri, and they had good teams when he was at Missouri. And then we all know about UNLV. So I'm all on board with the Purdue train, with Howard's train.
Yes, Howard, as we know, has been the train conductor for quite some time. No, he's done an excellent job, and I got to believe, I mean, the result of that game last year, certainly for Ryan Brown, it's got to give him confidence, right? I mean, to go into this game and know, hey, we went up and down the field on these guys a season ago. And again, I mean, not to beat a dead horse here, but I mean, they weren't very good last year, Purdue. And now he's got to feel like, certainly in the pass game, I mean, they've got some nice weapons around him. I know they're not running it as well as they want to, but I got to believe they come in with some confidence, Jerry.
Yeah, they do. 6 touchdowns, 5 picks. That's where Ryan has to get better.
Right.
And again, when you look at Josh Henson calling the game, a 2-yard run is okay if the defense has to defend a 2-yard run. If they're just throwing it all over the lot and this becomes a pass rush drill, there's no good future for Purdue this year if it becomes pass after pass and and you don't have a running game. So, early in a coach's career at a program that has to be rebuilt, 1st and 10, 2nd and 8, 2nd and 6. I mean, that's not where you want to be. I mean, you want to be in 2nd and medium, obviously, or you want to throw the ball at 1st and 10 and gate 8 or 9 yards. But if you keep the run game there, and this is where a veteran coach like Barry Odom is on the headset with Josh Henson, and if it starts getting to look like we're going to throw the ball every down and our quarterback's getting sacked and we're putting our defense on the field too much, this is where a veteran coach like Coach Odom says, hey, let's run it on 1st down. Let's see what we can do. And maybe we slow the tempo of the game down a little bit.
To your point.
Again, it just looks like a really well-coached team.
No doubt. Just too many negative plays. And again, that's a function of you pieced together a team. I mean, they had one returning starter on the entire team, being Devin Maccabee, and the offensive line is slowly coming together, but they've given up the 2nd most tackles for loss per game in the Big Ten. We'll see if they can run it against that Illinois defense. Saturday, we got Big Ten tailgate live from Purdue. Get you ready for that game, all the pregame festivities, then countdown to kickoff with Jerry and Rick Pizzo taking you on the field right before the action begins. It all starts Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Penn State on the road at UCLA this week to face the winless Bruins. UCLA will have a new play caller for that game. The school announced last night it had mutually parted ways with offensive coordinator Tino Sinceri. Tight ends coach Jerry Neuheisel is the new play caller. The Bruins 132nd in the nation scoring. They were 126th last year. That matchup, one of 6 conference games this weekend. We already talked about a couple of them. We also have Washington and Maryland, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nebraska, Michigan State, plus a non-conference game in Evanston as Northwestern takes on Louisiana Monroe. Jerry back with me now. And Jerry, let's dive into the other featured game on the Big Ten Network, that game between Washington and Maryland. The Terps are unbeaten, 2 new coordinators, and early returns are really positive.
Is there any such thing as giving out Coach of the Year awards after 4 or 5 games? Because Mike Locksley would deserve it. I mean, think about what he did during the offseason, right? Both new coordinators on both sides. Pep Hamilton, who's the offensive coordinator and the play caller. He also has Hal Hunter to the offensive line staff. Those two have made an incredible difference with their offense. I think Pep has done an unbelievable job with Malik Washington. I think he's done a great job calling the defense. Ted Monachino, another NFL guy, just like we talked about Patricia at Ohio State, another NFL defensive coordinator coming to the college scene and making an impact. I find it interesting that the defensive coordinators that the head college coaches are hiring, like Monachino and like Matt Patricia, are defensive coordinators that have a great feel for when to pressure and when to cover. And I think the reason is it happens, the down and distance, the 3rd and long, 3rd and medium happens more in the NFL than it does in the college game. And yet the offenses are pretty similar scheme-wise. So they're defending pretty much the same offenses they defended in the NFL, but there was more opportunities that the offense threw the ball than they do in college. And so I think most of these guys, like Monachino, have a great feel, and he's done great things, especially when to pressure and when to cover. So I think Mike Loxley getting the locker room back, hiring Pep and hiring Ted, I think has been some great moves early in the season.
Well, Monachino certainly knew when to pressure against Wisconsin. They had 6 sacks last time out. It is fascinating to see the way that Malik Washington has developed here. I mean, really from the get-go, it felt like he was ready to go. We've got 4 games in the books. He's thrown for more than 250 yards in all of them, and he's done it, Jerry, without a great running game. How impressive is that? I mean, you touched on a little bit with the job Pep Hamilton has done, but particularly when they're not able to run the ball, I think, quite in the way that they want to. What does it tell you about the fact that Washington's still been able to maneuver his way through?
Well, he was at spring practice, and nowadays that's probably pretty common. I think a lot of teams have everyone at spring practice that they're going to have in the fall, where entire freshman classes get to campus in spring ball. So I think Malik's benefit spring practice certainly. I think Pep Hamilton, not only coaching the quarterbacks, but the play calling, I think, has been tailored around a very talented quarterback. You look at Bryce Underwood, you look at Malik Washington, I'm not sure there's a whole lot of difference. If following these 2 young quarterbacks is going to be a really fun thing to do as they go through their careers at Michigan and at Maryland. So Washington's just been really impressive. Interesting enough, I think he's better at the deep ball now than he is at the intermediate and the short ball. And I'd rather start with a quarterback that can throw the deep ball better than the short ball and the intermediate ball, because as we joke in the green room all the time, those back shoulder passes that used to be considered bad passes, now they're perfect passes, and he can do that. And that's how you're an explosive offense, when you can throw that deep back shoulder pass.
And they have protected him well, too, giving up just 2 sacks so far on the year. So he's confident back there in the pocket. He'll face a Washington team that's coming off the loss, as we know, at home to Ohio State, although they certainly kept it close for a large portion of the game. We can talk about the job they did defensively and the challenge facing Washington, but I think when you're facing the Huskies, the big thing that you worry about is all of the offensive talent on this team, and we've kind of gone through the big 3, obviously with Damon Williams and Jonah Coleman and Denzel Boston. This is such a talented team here, Jerry. What's the challenge that's facing Maryland in this game of going up against Washington?
Yeah, well, let's put the Washington offense against the Maryland defense. The difficulty is that their offensive line is very athletic. I'm not sure how deep they are, but if they can stay healthy, their offensive line is pretty athletic. And this is one of the adjustments I think the West Coast schools had to make when they joined the Big Ten. Oregon's done it very well. Washington's done it very well. USC and UCLA probably not quite as well at the line of scrimmage, but Washington's really talented. Their offensive line, like I say, I'm not sure how deep they are, but they can bend. They're really athletic. And then you take those 3 skill guys that you mentioned, Rever, now I can run or I can pass against the Maryland defense. So I think that's the challenge for the for the Maryland defense, rather. And remember, these are very aggressive play callers on the Washington staff. Jed Fish, he'll throw it from his own 1-yard line. I mean, you never really know what he's going to do. It's hard to get a tendency on him. And then on defense, you have Ryan Walters, who is a pressure guy. So both sides of Maryland football are going to be challenged by 2 aggressive play calls. The one interesting thing is, the Maryland Stadium isn't maybe one of the hardest stadiums to play. And I do think that travel for Washington team from the West Coast to the East Coast, I think that's a challenge. And the atmosphere might be a little bit of a challenge. It's not going to be a great environment. I mean, Maryland's had some good crowds. It's had some average crowds. And so the crowd at Maryland could help Maryland if everybody shows up. If not, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But the difficulty might be on the Washington sideline because it's an unusual environment, if I could use that term.
And they haven't really fared well away from home, no matter what the environment's been. Frankly, they're 1-7 away from true road games, I should say, as Washington's head coach under Jed Fish. Our big stat is brought to you by Gatorade. Ohio State's defense picking up where it left off despite significant personnel turnover and a new coordinator. Led the nation in scoring D last year. They're leading it again this year, having allowed 22 total points in 4 games. Far and away the nation's best red zone defense. In fact, they have yet to allow a red zone touchdown all season. Opponents are 0 for 7. And this past week, they held Washington without a touchdown at home. First time that had happened to the Huskies in 15 years. Defensive end Caden Curry, a huge part of the reason why, tied a school record with 5 tackles for loss, including 3 sacks. He is leading the nation in tackles for loss per game. The senior's 5 sacks exceed his career total entering the season. And Caden Curry is today's big interview. Caden, really appreciate you joining us. You heard that stat there, the 5 tackles for loss tying a school record. I mean, you think of all of the great defensive players in Ohio State through the years. What does it mean when you hear that no one has had a game better than that one?
I mean, honestly, it's just a blessing and an honor to kind of hold that stat with all the great names that are around me. And I just want to thank God for that, put me in that situation.
It's your 4th year in the program, and you think about all the great players who you have sat behind, essentially, right? I mean, JT Tuimoloau, Al-Jack Sawyer on the most recent team, Zach Harrison, and the list kind of goes on and on. What was it like for you to kind of have to sit around? I mean, you got on the field, but you didn't play a role like the one you're playing right now. What was it like for you to kind of have to sit around and bide your time?
Honestly, just being around those guys, kind of just using them as mentors and kind of just using them as an extra coach and just learning from them, learning their craft and their style definitely helped me become the player I am today.
Yeah, all 4 of the defensive linemen from last year's national championship team were drafted into the NFL, which is kind of mind-boggling in and of itself. But picking up on that, kind of this notion of being around these great players, what did you learn from them? Is there specific lessons that maybe you learned from Jack or from JTT or any of those guys that have resonated with you?
Just kind of how they carry themselves on and off the field and just how they are characterly and just how they kind of go about their day, kind of just showed me how I need to play and how I need to be as a person, and it kind of just made me strive to be better.
You are from Indiana. I know you gave some thought to playing for IU, but ultimately kind of swayed by the opportunity to play for Larry Johnson. And you go through all the great players that have played for him through the years. I think you certainly could create an argument that he's the best defensive line coach in America. What was it about him that made you say, this is an opportunity I can't pass up?
I mean, with Coach Johnson, he's kind of like my dad over in Ohio. I mean, I love the guy. He's always just had such a good rap of coaching and who he's been around, and he has so much knowledge for the game. I mean, you just can't pass up on if you're a defensive lineman in the country.
Kind of a similar question to those guys you played around last year. What are the biggest lessons that you've learned from Coach Johnson?
To just never get too high or too low, and to always just play as hard as you can and run to the ball.
You know, it's interesting. One of the narratives entering this year around this team and whether or not you guys had the potential to repeat was about your group, about the defensive line. Kind of, hey, I'm not sure there's a breakout superstar on this team, similar to some of those names that we talked about in recent years. You yourself called this a no-name defense. That's what you said after the game the other day. To what extent have you guys used that narrative as motivation?
Yeah, I mean, we had so many great players last year that went on and went to the NFL. So, I mean, it definitely kind of gave us a way to just kind of stay motivated and stay hungry for this next season. And we definitely just took it day by day, working as hard as we can, and it just got better every single day.
Well, you have certainly gotten better. The coaches talk a ton about your relentlessness on the field. Your teammates echo that's kind of your defining characteristic. Where does that come from? What fuels that?
I feel like that's just how the game should be played, and that's just how I've always played it. And I mean, whenever you just see the ball, you got to go get it, and you just can't kind of let up, and you kind of just can't take your foot off the gas.
Well, I don't want to sit here and psychoanalyze or anything, but You grew up in a house with 6 boys, right? You've got 2 older brothers. I know you have 3 stepbrothers as well. Describe that scene. I mean, it feels like relentlessness might have been a good characteristic to have there.
Yeah, I mean, being the youngest too definitely made me have some challenges growing up. So they definitely made me tough and they made me strong.
Yeah, tell me a bit about that environment.
Definitely chaotic. Definitely got the last of everything, and definitely had to fight for what was mine.
What's it been like to share the success that you've had this year with them?
I mean, definitely just kind of letting them kind of mentor me growing up and having them kind of just show me the way of how to play the game. I mean, they were both all of them were football players too, so just kind of being able to share that with them and just kind of it's kind of all of our success. It's not just mine.
Right, and as you say, I mean, this has been a complete team effort. It's pretty remarkable that you guys have just kind of picked up where you left off, especially since you have a new coordinator in Matt Patricia. And it just seems like in watching him that he's got a really good bond with this group. Tell me a bit about Coach Patricia and his style.
Yeah, definitely. Coach Patricia is a great mentor. He's just a great person all in all. I mean, he just kind of just teaches in a way that we all kind of understand it at a different level, and we kind of just can play the game free and fast, and we just don't have to think as much. It's definitely a great attribute to our game, and it's definitely a great person to have out there.
What were the biggest challenges in making the transition and going from Coach Knoll's defense to Coach Patricia's?
I mean, you kind of see more of the NFL style with Coach Patricia. You kind of get away from having to kind of know everything at once, and you're kind of just playing more freely, and you're just kind of going out there and playing football.
Well, it's worked for you. It's worked for your teammates as well. I mean, you're not the only one having kind of a breakout season. Caden McDonald was fabulous in that game against Washington as well. Give me some adjectives to describe the other Caden.
I mean, he's definitely a ball player. He see ball, get ball. He is a great player from the line. He can definitely knock the line of scrimmage back, and he just makes the play when his number's called.
It's interesting, the psychology around this group this year. You've kind of been to the mountaintop. You've won the national championship. So what motivates this group, having that already under your collective belts?
Yeah, I mean, with our defense right now, we kind of all just want to kind of get better every single day. All 11 of us are kind of out there working hard, practicing every single day as hard as we can. And we kind of just want to live up to how we were last year. I mean, we had a great defense, but, I mean, we can always get better every day, and we can be a better defense if we really want to be.
Well, that is something that I know strikes fear in your opponents, the notion that this group could get better. Minnesota is the opponent this week. Give me the scouting report on the Gophers.
I mean, great team. I heard I know they got a freshman quarterback back there that's a really good athlete and a really good player. So, I mean, we're definitely going to stop him too and just keep playing the defensive football. It's always about us, and we just got to play our way.
Well, Caden Curry, congratulations on a fabulous start to this year. It's been a lot of fun to watch you and biding your time. It's a great lesson for a lot of young people these days. You stick around and good things happen. Caden, congratulations and best of luck this weekend and the rest of the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Big Ten Volleyball is a really cool in-season tournament this month. It is the Discover Volleyball Challenge. Quick summary here. All 18 teams in the Big Ten are going to play 5 weekday matches in October. All of those matches will count toward the challenge, and then the team with the best record at the end of it all is the challenge winner. And the Big Ten Discover Volleyball Challenge gets underway this very evening. Heck of a matchup for you as the 10th ranked Gophers take on Michigan. Coverage begins at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. So that is Michigan volleyball. We got Michigan football fresh off a bye week. They beat Nebraska last time out. Now they get reeling Wisconsin in Ann Arbor this weekend. What's your assessment of the Wolverines to this point in the year, Jerry?
Well, progress certainly at quarterback with Bryce Underwood, and off weeks, there's no guarantee about off weeks. I think that's one of the most difficult things that coaches have to manage. But young quarterbacks really benefit a lot from off weeks. When you hear about Bryce Underwood being one of those guys who's always in the facilities, always watching tape, the week off gets him to watch every play that he's played. And He's had a bad experience at Oklahoma. He's had a good experience at Nebraska. That's part of it. And now he has a week to study all that and come back. It also gives Chip Lindsey, the offensive coordinator, a chance to visit with Bryce, visit with the offensive line, offensive unit rather, and see where they want to go from this point. And I think Coach Lindsey's done a really good job calling the game, putting Bryce in the best possible positions that he can be. On defense, I think if you look at the program, Wink Martindale, there you see Chip Lindsey right there, who again, I think's done a terrific job. Wink Martindale, a defensive coordinator, I think the defense is a little ahead of the offense. And that's pretty typical of a young team coming into their own, coming into around mid-season. So I think the progress is steady and strong. I think the Nebraska win, that drive at the end, probably gave their offense a lot of confidence going into the bye week and now coming out of the bye week.
Oh, the other thing that would give the offensive line confidence is the rushing numbers in general. They put up 667 rushing yards over the last 2 weeks. I mean, that's kind of a staggering number for Michigan. And as you say, it gives Bryce Underwood some confidence too, because he knows he doesn't have to do it all with his arm. Part of that has been Bryce Underwood running the ball really well. It's going to be challenging against Wisconsin. We can talk about all the offensive struggles for the Badgers, and there have been a lot of them. One thing they have done, Jerry, is they've stopped the run really, really well. In fact, they are first in the nation in rushing defense. So there's a little bit of a strength versus strength there, but really nothing else has gone according to plan. Certainly these last 2 games for Luke Fickell and company, they're coming off a bye week as well. What do you see from Wisconsin, and how can they get themselves back to playing the brand of football they expect to play?
Yeah, I'm guessing during the off week they did a couple things. Fix what you can fix. And by that I mean they had 2 kicks blocked in the first quarter of the Maryland game, a field goal and a punt. Well, you know, block kicks are very unusual, right? I mean, you can watch 4, 5, 6, 10 games and never happen. So you would think that the chances of someone getting 11 people to kick a field goal without having a block would be really good. How many block punts are there? Not very many. You think you could get 11 guys in your team to snap the ball and punt the ball. So that's something they can fix, and that's where it starts. And then you mentioned their defense. Their defense is their strongest part of their game. The rush defense is the strongest part of the game. It's also the strongest part of the Michigan offense is their run game. So fix what you can fix and do what you can do. So protect your quarterback, be sound in the kick game, and then let's see if the run defense is as good as the statistics tell us, and see if we can stop the Michigan run, put the game in the hands of a young quarterback, Bryce Underwood. But there's no reason to have 2 block kicks in one half of football. Really, you could go the entire year and not have a field goal block or a punt block. And they have to fix that, and then they play their strength on defense.
And again, it's easy to point to injuries. I know a lot of teams have injuries, but it's pretty unusual to have a team. This is the 3rd straight year the starting quarterback's gone down. They had 2 quarterbacks go out in that last game against Maryland. It sounds like Billy Edwards still questionable, as is Dylan Jones. Preston Zachman is out. Jake Renfro questionable. So just a litany of issues for Luke Fickell. We'll see whether maybe they get a little bit healthier in that bye week, because clearly having your starting quarterback, the guy you expected to be your starter, healthy would make a difference for the Badgers. Don't miss live coverage of Big Ten basketball media days a week away, October 8th and 9th, next Wednesday and Thursday on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Now, Michigan State and Nebraska Saturday in Lincoln, a matchup of 2 talented second-year starters in Dylan Raiola and Aiden Childs. You see the numbers so far this year, 20 touchdowns, just 2 picks between them. Raiola completing nearly 76% of his passes. That is good for 4th nationally. Childs 11 total TDs. That's just 5 shy of his season total from last year. And Jerry, the quarterback's always a good place to start, but what do you think ultimately decides this game?
Well, when you look at Nebraska's offense, they're a pass-first offense. They're a pass-first program, actually. And so it's always going to come down to a couple things. This week, next week, the week after, last week, next year, whatever. If they can protect the passer And if they can run the ball well enough that the defense has to defend the run, then they can have a lot of success on offense. And if those two things happen against Michigan State, then obviously they'll move the ball. We saw against Michigan, they couldn't protect the passer. Michigan's defense didn't have to defend the run. They had a week off. They've certainly have addressed that. So what the run-pass ratio is going to be like this week against Michigan State, we're going to have to wait and see. But they have to be able to protect the passer, and they have to make the defense defend the run. Otherwise, it becomes a pass rush drill. It's a 7-on-7 game with a couple of big guys mushing it around in the middle. And so that's what it'll look like when Nebraska has the ball. The Michigan State team is in a little bit of the same situation. They're not necessarily pass first, but they're quarterback based. And Aiden Childs, this is the third year that he's in Jonathan Smith's system because he was with him before they both came to Ohio State. And he really looks like he's been in this system for 3 years. He's very comfortable. Last year, he had 11 interceptions and 13 touchdowns. So far this year, it's just the opposite. It's 9 touchdowns and 1 interception. So his growth has been significant. But they have to be able to run the ball as well, and it's a really tough environment. And Aiden has to really be careful with the ball because it's a tough place to play. You're going to have crowd noise. Brian Lingren, the offensive coordinator, I think has done a tremendous job play calling to put Aiden Childs in position for success. And they're going to have to do that in Lincoln because, again, they're going to have to fight the crowd somewhat.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to look at. I mean, anyone who's watched Nebraska this year, Jerry, knows how much they've struggled defending the run. Michigan State isn't a good running team, as you say. As an OC, though, do you try a few of those just to see whether you can get something going?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. Again, Nebraska's not good against the run because in spring practice and camp, they don't get aggressive run game blocking schemes. They get zone blocking schemes. So that problem's not going to go away for Nebraska. So if Michigan State can run against the defense, this might be the defense that they can do it.
We will look forward to it. Thanks, Coach. See you next week.